Hey, what is up? Welcome to this Saturday Night Soul Session live with me, Reverend LC. This is the Recovery Soulfood podcast. I guess we could call it a broadcast, but it kind of does all of it, and podcast encompasses everything. Um, Tonight, I'm joined by a returning guest, one of my favorites, recovery warrior and podcaster JD Dilks. We're going to talk about finding the treasures in our shadows. And that's going to take us through some of the things that JD's been going through that I think will resonate with so many of you. Um, I always like to I wanted to start with like this maybe like an energy update because we're in some very intense times. We're in some very intense shifts, and there are probably quite a few of our listeners that are feeling these intense shifts. Now, the focus of our program tonight being finding the treasures in our shadows, are really there are treasures hidden in our shadows. If you're not in a space of your healing journey or your recovery journey to where you know how to find those treasures, I want to be the first to let you know there are treasures hidden within our shadows. And the point of recovery, which makes it so much different than just clean and sober time, is recovery is about going to the roots of those shadows, visiting our shadows, being within our shadows, and transmuting that in this energy that's in the world right now, that is in our cosmos and our collective and our individual lives, is calling us to do that. It's going to be bringing up things within it's going to be exposing roots. It may be exposing roots that you did not see coming. It may be exposing relationships and truths and just coming for the things that you believe that your foundations are built on. And this cycle is about to close out, and it's asking us to heal for this last push towards ascension. And so I'm grateful to have JD here tonight to share with us what some of his struggles and how he has been finding the treasures within his shadows, and where he is in all of this energy. And I look forward to hearing from you all too. If you resonate with this video, with this episode, with this content, then we would love for you to do all the cool things, which is like the video and share it and subscribe to the YouTube channel. You can, follow us on Instagram, do all the stuff. And, while you're at it, as always, I always want to offer you an amazing resource. And you can pick up my great friend and soul sister, Pamela Topchian's book on Amazon.com/. Pamela Topchian. And you can get it for under $10. And this is a great story. I didn't come this far to only come this far. And if you're in a recovery, you're in a healing journey, then you already resonate with this because you know that where you are now, as awesome as it may be or as destructive as it may be, you didn't come that far to only come that far. There is so much more to you. And here on Recovery Soul Food, this podcast is a podcast about getting up from your give up and creating a life that you love. And that's what we're focusing on this season. So I'm super excited to have JD Dilks here, recovery warrior, podcaster, and all the cool things. Husband, dad, just all the cool things. So if you all are ready, I know he's ready. I'm ready. So let's go. What is up, JD? Welcome back to the show. Grateful to have you here tonight, man.
Thank
What's
you,
been up?
LC. I appreciate you having me on.
Yeah, yeah, man. Well, you're always a fun guest. We always have fun, and we always talk about stuff that I think that resonates with a lot of people in this time. This is a very, very strange times that we're going through, both collectively and individually. And when you and I connected about this, you had an amazing story of relapse, redemption, um, starting your time over. And I just don't want to waste any time with you. Like, I'd really like to get into that aspect because I think that a lot of people are going through this and we're seeing this and I'm very, very interested in all of it, how it came about and all the things that you've learned since going into that space, into that shadow. And so tell us how we're here tonight and how we're talking about this. Tell us about you. What's happening?
So I don't know why I relapsed. I got really really lucky. My relapse happened for one night, and
Hmm.
then that was it. It's still a relapse nonetheless. And I didn't relapse on drinking. I didn't relapse from doing my drug of choice. I'm prescribed Ativan
Hmm.
for my many different mental health things I'm going through. Just lost my father back in June
So sorry, man.
from cancer.
Mm.
So I'm prescribed Ativan, and I'm supposed to be taking it as needed. And I don't know why I did it still 3 weeks later, but I took way too many. And so, it's a relapse. Let's call it what it is. It's a relapse.
Yeah,
But when I had the discussion with my wife regarding, it being a relapse, it didn't send me off the rails like, all right, well, fuck it. I'm going to go drink now. I'm going to
yeah,
go get
yeah.
high now because my clock's back to zero.
That's recovery.
Yeah,
Yeah.
like in my opinion, I have three different dates.
Hmm.
I've been in recovery since April 25th, 2018.
Yep.
I've been sober from alcohol since February 29th, 2020, and now I'm clean and sober since November 15th.
Awesome.
So,
Awesome.
but I think the important thing was knowing that I relapsed and not let it get in the best of me where I went off on a tailspin.
Yeah.
Because this time of year, this was my first Thanksgiving without my dad,
Wow.
and that could have easily been continued to spin out of control.
Right, right.
This will be the first Christmas without my dad, the first New Year, and these are all these firsts
Hmm. Hmm.
that my dad and I were best friends, and we talked every day. So
Mm.
it's a huge adjustment to being like, who do I talk to every day now?
Yeah. 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 And it's so intense there in the beginning when you're in that transition. Because that's how my journey started with the death of the three people so back to back that were so close to me. And it really is that there's that time period of where you do have to get used to, man, I can't pick up the phone and call this person, and you'll catch yourself grabbing the phone and different things. And I think that is such a hard stage of grief. It's almost like this shock, and it's like I was sharing about in the beginning, like this is a time where it's like all of those foundations are being shaken, and people are and taken, and all this stuff, and we're being tasked with starting over brand new. And I appreciate your courage and your honesty to speak about that, because if you I think when you go off in a tailspin is when you don't call it what it is for you. And I think relapse is a very personal. I mean, like there's some big things, but I think it's also personal like that, like with you. Like you were honest with yourself about, and it was more a relapse of maybe mind and habit than it was just this intense craving to want to do it, but you acknowledge that. And I'm glad also that you're not taking such making the time so special, because I think that's what recovery is. I can't tell you like how many moments like you had, like I had in my first year of recovery, and I still count that as a year in recovery. Like I just count that because it's in such stages, And with something that's so huge like this, and once again, man, I'm so sorry for your loss. And again, applaud your bravery and your courage and your willingness to share about that as it's so new. Um, what was your, I guess after that, like what was that defining moment where you said, "Oh, okay, I'm in this now." Like I'm in a relapse. Like I catch it myself. And second part to that question is, did you beat yourself up about it?
Yes and no. My wife called it out because
Mm,
she saw that like they were all in my weekly pill box, right?
mhm, mhm,
And I had to go to the hospital for something different. I was dehydrated. I needed to get an IV, whatever.
mhm.
But while I was gone, she was looking for something, and then she happened to open my med box, and she saw that I was missing a lot of them. Like it was
Wow.
like a Tuesday,
Yeah.
and I was missing like 5 days worth. And she was like, "Did you take all these?" And I was like, "I must. I don't remember." And she was like, "Well, you know this is a relapse, right?" And I
Wow.
said, "Yeah, I know it is." And she was like, "What are you gonna do?" And I said, "Not do it again." Um, Now I have her hold on to the meds and keep them
That's
locked up.
awesome.
This way, I can't like because I don't want to be in a relapse. I don't want to make
Yeah,
her. I don't want to make her nervous that I'm going down a path. I'm just getting through shit. You know
yeah,
what I mean?
yeah, yeah.
Sometimes the only thing you can do is sit and shit and just hope for it doesn't stink anymore.
That's it. Yeah,
Um,
sure.
so we had the honest conversation. And I think it was important to have that conversation with somebody right away. If she would have held that in and kept it to herself and just like I don't know what would have happened with me. But no,
Mm,
she called it out. We had the conversation, and I think that was indicative into how I was going to bounce back again.
yeah.
Um, then I called myself out. I did a 10-minute episode for like last week, the day before Thanksgiving. I did a 10-minute episode of me coming clean. And
Nice.
this is what I did. This is what happened. I'm not going to let it control me. I'm not gonna let me being in a relapse spin me out of control. They're just days.
Yeah,
That's all it
yeah,
is. It's just a day. It's
yeah,
just something that you celebrate. In 5 years, if I'm knock on wood, still clean and sober, I'll laugh at that one night.
yeah, yeah.
You know what I
Or
mean?
yeah, or you'll even have even more understanding of how it plays a significant part in how you get to the 5 years. And, it's so there's so many things about that are so amazing and so important, and just you number 1, you and your wife having that open line of communication where there was comfort, not that it wasn't uncomfortable, but there was comfort in and love enough to confront that, and that she has the knowledge to be able to see what it is she's seeing. And again, bravo right back to you for stepping right back up there and saying, but yeah, you're right, because it's important. Like we become successful by studying the strategy in our failures, and I just feel like, and I hate to even use the word failure, because I think it's just part of it, because you're right, you're getting through shit, and there is a real it's very real when you get to as much as you can take of the situation, and I think for all of us that have come from substance use and disorders and addictions, that we are always going to know that there's an escape button. That's not going to be knowledge that we ever forget. And so I think that no matter what, that it will always be something off there that's an option for us. And I think that in these earlier times, because how much time did you have pre this? If
3.5 years.
so, 3.5 years, right? And so that's still that's a really big time like 3 years is they go in like that 90 days and then that year, and then 3 years was a really big one for me as well. And going through stuff and pushing the button here, but like not really pushing it, like you said, like falling off the rails, but just kind of teetering around the button. And so, God, there's so many beautiful things about that. So I love the question that she asked you, so what are you going to do? So what is your plan from here? Like, what is the strategy, the treasure that you found in that shadow of what we call relapse? I call healing, we'll call it relapse.
Um, I just need to be more honest with myself about medications.
Mhm.
Why do
Mhm.
I take certain medications? What are they useful for?
Mhm.
Going over that, I've talked to my therapist about it the last couple of weeks.
Okay, so
Uh,
you're in therapy too, right?
yep, and I have a psychiatrist.
Mm.
So I have a therapist and a psychiatrist, and I bounce both. I told them both the next. I happened to meet with my therapist every Wednesday at noon, and I meet with my psych every 3 Wednesdays.
Nice.
So I happened to have landed on a day on that Wednesday, the day after my wife and I had that conversation.
Wow.
So I was able to talk about it with my therapist and my psychiatrist and make sure we had a plan of action of, her holding my meds. And this
Mhm.
way I wouldn't be able to go out of control again. And they're locked up and I don't have the key. So I'm not responsible for my medications right now, and
Mm.
which I don't want to be left to my
Right.
own devices. Who knows what I could do? Because that's the sad part about it. Something like Ativan or benzos
Mhm.
is you completely black out and you take them and you might not
Yes.
know the high, what, where, when, and how.
Right, right, without a doubt. It's a
Like
given.
for me,
Yeah,
I don't
yeah,
know exactly what that final like trigger was,
yeah.
but I did it. I know that she didn't take them and blame me or anything like that. Like I know
Right,
that I did it. I just
yeah,
don't know why exactly, and that's something that we're delving into with therapy and figure out
good,
that why.
good, good. Grief is overwhelming. Like, grief is one of the to me, in my honest opinion and my experience, grief has been one of the hardest triggers to fight, in that because it doesn't start and end. It's not a box where we can go through all the steps. Grief and loss like that is something that's very individualized. Some people never get to a place where they can move
Oh,
on with their lives. Others, they go through it, find a healthy balance fairly quick, and it's just so individualized you
it
know
just happened the other day because my first bout with grief. I mean, I was a kid, my first time dealing with grief, but like
Mhm.
my first time as an adult dealing with grief close to me was my first fiance that
Mm,
committed suicide.
mm,
And it's crazy. We just found the other day, we were going through a bunch of old stuff that I got from my mom's house, like a bunch of my dad's stuff that I got from him.
mhm.
And then, like, in all this old stuff was my wallet that I had. And I've had my same wallet that I use today since I bought it in Belgium when I was over there 8 years ago.
Wow.
And so we find this wallet and opened it up, and there's all my movie stubs that I went to the movies with my first fiance.
Wow.
So it was a rush of emotions and grief,
Mhm.
even though it had been 8 years, but I haven't seen those ticket stubs in 8 years.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
immediately took me back to, what movie and where we were in a relationship when we went, and all that kind of stuff. So grief, I know from experience, definitely comes out in the most random places.
It does.
Thanksgiving just happened. That was my first Thanksgiving without my dad, and leaving there with, I have a bunch of his stuff on a like table in my office, where including his ashes, and my mom gave me the watch. My dad was really into watches, and she gave me the watch that he was wearing in his casket.
Wow. Wow.
So I have that watch draped over his ashes and all that kind of stuff.
That's so wild, man. I have my grandfather's ashes like that, and his watch is around the bottle. That's
Really,
yeah, yeah,
yeah. That
yeah.
it
That's
was the
awesome.
perfect because I'm not a watch guy. You know what I
Yeah,
mean?
me
I don't.
neither. Yeah,
So, but we everybody got a watch. That's just how it
wow.
was. My dad had so many watches. My mom's like everybody gets a watch. But specifically, she wanted me to have that one. But yeah, the spot that I found for it was across his ashes, and I figured that's a good spot for it. And if I ever need to wear a watch out in public, if I'm wearing like a tuxedo or a suit and I want to wear a
Yeah.
watch, then I'll pull that out.
And it's a great reminder also about time, and that in this human existence we're not blessed with endless amounts of time, and it's so important that while we're here, while we're able to have relationships and be able to cherish other people and have these experiences, that it's just a beautiful to me analogy of time, of use our time wisely. And I'm such a you know I talk about that whole getting up from the give up part a lot, but I really, 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 talk about want to embrace the creating the life that we love because of that time reminder. Because, you know, eventually my time's going to run out and your time's going to run out. And how do we leave the people, how do they remember us? There was a time in my life, and I'm sure in yours as well, that if we had been the ones to pass away, people would have not been surprised, or they saw this coming. And it still to this day gives me such great pride and overwhelming emotion to lay my head down at night and know that everyone who I came in contact today would remember me in a more special way. And I think that's a great analogy and reminder. I mean, probably a beautiful message that your dad will continue to come through and give to you throughout the years, because people always say this, but I know that it's true, and I think that it's true too, is that you know the physicalness of that human is no longer within our space and within our realm, but they are truly with us, and it takes a
Yeah,
while.
his energy is
A
still
while.
around.
Yes,
I,
exactly.
I don't. I'm not a huge. I grew up Catholic,
Mhm.
and I'm not a huge God guy
Mhm.
anymore. I'm kind of what do they call recovering Catholic.
Yeah. I've heard that.
But I do believe in energy. I believe in karma.
Mhm.
And these are
Yeah.
forces like you can't see the wind, but you believe it because you
Right.
see the trees blowing. You
Gravity.
see,
Yeah.
yeah, exactly. You don't see gravity, but you believe it because you're
Yeah.
standing here.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I definitely believe in like forces beyond our control that are like guiding ways. So, but
And
I don't like. I'm not like, oh, chapter or verse this and chapter that,
yeah.
and you know,
Yeah.
I just don't believe that there's billions of people on Earth and there's only one God that everybody should believe. I don't believe in that.
Well,
You know.
and that's the beautiful part of each one of our experiences. It takes all of us. It takes diversity. Like, we can't be a true whole humanity without our diversity, because I agree on several of those points. I either don't have like this fixed religious idea, because my question was, I guess 5 years ago now, right when I started going through the transition, I had found a place. I had this religious idea, but it was more like I was studying who Jesus was. And all of a sudden in the transition, I thought, wait a minute, I don't fit. I don't know where I fit. So I asked this question just out, I want to know God. Like I want to have a relationship with something bigger than me. Reveal that. And over the years, there's just been this awakening process to the point that it brings me to the place to start to love my differences, my diversity, my uniqueness, because to me, that's creation. And, so I completely resonate with you on that and understand that. And so that's the great thing. I always take a picture of my grandparents with me everywhere I go to do something, that they never got to live to see me do, whether it's speak somewhere or some type of event or advocacy, they always go with me. So I know that they're there and little things happen.
Yeah, I'm
And
grateful my dad got to see me get sober.
yes,
You know what I
that's a
mean?
blessing.
Like, he got
Yeah.
to see me, he never really was bought in on me being an alcoholic.
Hmm.
Because I didn't drink every day. I wasn't one of those alcoholics that
A
drank every
binge.
day.
Yeah.
Um, but he definitely knew I was an addict,
Mhm.
and he knew how many mistakes I made in my addiction. Cause like now that he's not here, I can talk about it more openly. But like I embezzled like 10 grand from our company when he took over he took over a plumbing franchise,
Mhm.
and my brother and me worked for him, and it was like our baby together, all three of us. And I was in charge of the credit card processing and processing debit cards and credit cards.
Mhm.
I soon realized that you could do a return on any card. So
Mm.
I was doing return back onto like my dealer's card, so he would get like an $1,800 payment, and
Mhm.
then that would be my money towards whatever I wanted. And my dad didn't catch on until $10,000,
Mm. Mhm.
and I paid him back $500 a week for 20 weeks.
Wow. Wow.
Took it out of my paycheck every week for 20 weeks. He didn't go to the police. He
Mhm.
just chalked it up as I'm a drug addict, and
Yeah.
it is what it is. And I was a drug addict, and I was beg, borrowing, and stealing any chance I got in order
Yeah.
to fund my
Yep.
habit. And because my habit was a $300 a day habit, it's just not cheap,
Yeah.
especially when you're not making $300 a day to cover.
Right. 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 And that's the things that we do when that whole monster is upon you. Those are the places we compromise ourselves and the way that, our true self, our own nature, and it makes you feel, even worse, and it just seems to make that cycle just keep going. Yeah, I mean, I was involved with a female who came into my life, and I moved her into my grandparents' house where I was living, and then there were all these. She got credit cards in their name and added me as the extra card holder. Well, at some point, I kind of figured it out because she would just bring me the card. But at some point, and I was using that for my addiction, and at some point, I knew that something wasn't right. I was so far in my addiction that it had been so many thousands of dollars that it was almost like too late then. I was committed and had that have that to survive. And so I ended up having to pay. I went to jail, took the charge, and I felt responsible even though I didn't start the whole thing. I didn't stop it, and I felt responsible for bringing her into their vicinity. So I took the time, I paid the restitution, but they did not get to see me ever actually grasp sobriety and recovery before they died. They died probably scared for me and what was going to happen to me after that. And so it's really a blessing that your dad got to see that turnaround for you. And
Yeah, and it was a huge turnaround. You
yeah,
know, going from an everyday pill addict. Um, yeah, it definitely probably wasn't easy to be around me at
yeah,
that time.
yeah, yeah. Rarely ever is easy to be around us when we're in the thick of it for sure. It's I had a conversation with some young people that I was noticing their cycle of bridge burning, and it brought me back to that memory of being in that addiction and just burning every bridge that you went across, and just living with that, having no one, because at the end of the day, you burn so many bridges that you turn around and nobody's there anymore. And like that's when you hit real rock bottom. Some people make it out and some people don't. It's scary. It's really scary. And it's scary out in the world right now of relapse and
You
stuff.
look you look back and the bridge is completely gone.
Yeah. I mean, absolutely. It's gone and there's nothing you can do about it. And coming into recovery, like there was a point that I had to really get into acceptance that just because I want to apologize to somebody doesn't mean that they have to accept it or they even
Yeah.
have to hear me, you
They
know?
don't they don't
And that's
talk about
okay.
that in AA or
No.
NA.
Yeah.
The when they don't want to hear your apology, or they don't
Yeah.
really care that you're doing a step 9.
Yep.
Like
Yep.
they didn't talk to you about that.
No, nobody's at, yeah, and that's their right, and that's their, and we have to be in a place of acceptance of, I don't get to just apologize to everybody. Some of those bridges that I burned forever.
Yeah.
And I think that the the best I used to have, my biggest problem was always the feeling so guilty and so shitty about myself. It was like lighter fluid on the fire of my addiction. It'd just be more of an excuse, to use. And and I had to get to a point to where I started turning those other things into motivation. Like, instead of just feeling shitty because this person would not accept my apology or listen to my amends or any of that stuff, instead of feeling shitty about that, I would just like make that make me better. Just to continue to try to make me better, because my goal of every day is to try to be the best possible version of myself, whatever that means. And some days you win and some days you fail trying, and that's got to be good enough. So what are you doing with the podcast these days? Are you and your brother still doing that podcast? That shit was funny. That was so
Um,
funny.
we're on a break right now.
I got you.
I think it got too much for him after our dad passed to get up
Okay.
the energy to do it.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um, we both process in different ways. For
Sure.
me,
Sure.
I'm more outward, and he's more inward. Well, I mean, I'm more inward too. I guess I'm better at just talking about things,
Uh-huh.
and for him, he doesn't want to do that, which is not comfortable for him to do.
True. Yeah.
So we took a break, and then when we took a break, I started back up my MJ's podcast, and I'm almost at 150 episodes now. I'm at
Nice.
I'm at like 140 or 141, and I have 9 or 8 episodes already done and ready to hit release.
Nice.
So, because you know how I am, I'll record like
Uh-huh.
3 episodes in one
Yeah.
day just to
Yeah.
shelf them for when the week comes, and then I release them week to week. Um,
Nice.
and I could have probably did one per day if I wanted to,
Yeah.
because of how I find guests so easily on Facebook, where I'm in a ton of recovery groups
Uh-huh.
on Facebook, and whenever I see somebody post, "Oh, I'm 60 days sober, I'm a year sober," blah, 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 I'll hit them up in the comments like, "Hey, do you want to tell
That's
your
great.
story on my show?"
That's great.
And that's how I find a lot of my guests, is by being in all those Facebook groups.
That's
And
awesome.
then now I'm in like Seinfeld, and I'm in like Friends and Christmas vacation groups, and I'm making
Yeah.
memes for Christmas vacation.
That's awesome.
But because I found making memes to be fun for me. I didn't
Really.
realize that I would enjoy making memes.
Isn't it
Um,
great how you can
I,
find
I know
joy in
I
things?
love reading memes. I love seeing memes. I love sharing memes.
Yeah.
But I
Yeah.
never thought that I could like make memes. And it was really funny. Is I did one the other day based on planes, trains, and automobiles. Because I'm in a John Candy Facebook group.
Yeah.
So I made it. I made it and only posted it in this group. And then like 3 days later, somebody that I'm friends with on Facebook posted it on his page. And I'm like, son of
That's
a
great.
bitch, I made that. He was like, I don't know, I saw it in my feed. I'm like, yeah, it's because I made
That's
it.
awesome. That's awesome. That's how I got to be with my making those digitals, man. I just love to make them, and I never thought that I would like that. I didn't think that was anything I liked, but I love it. I love to see other people's stuff. So yeah, it's great to find joy in the smallest things and to have that ability to explore stuff. Well, I hope that your memes, man, go viral. That would be so fun just to do that all the time.
Yeah,
That would be
exactly.
awesome,
It's fun just to sit there, and I used to do stand up comedy,
right? I
and
remember that.
so you know you you actually you fake it's different because now you're looking for likes and all that, and I'm so used to like you telling me to my face how much you dislike me or how much you like
Yeah,
me
right.
with your applause or your
Yeah,
laughter, and now
yeah.
I have to just like trust that they're laughing.
Right,
you know,
right. Or at least send it out with a hope that it will land correctly, or
because
land good.
if you're writing LOL back to me, I don't think that you really laughed out loud.
Right.
Think
I'm
about
guilty
it.
of that. I'm guilty of LOL and only internally laughing. So you're
Yeah,
correct. It's a call out. Yep.
but if you do actually laugh out loud, you don't write LOL. You'll do like a ha 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 or
Right.
LMAO all caps,
Yeah, yeah.
and
So
you
true. You nailed it.
you don't when you actually laugh out loud is when you don't actually write LOL. And like I know when I make my brother cackle. My brother will cackle when he laughs really hard.
Yeah.
And I know because he does ha with an exclamation point. And I know that that's his cackle. So like I'll be sending him shit all the time. And most of the time he doesn't even respond because he's horrible at texting. But there will be the occasional ha that I get back that like I used to we lived in North Carolina for a year in Durham,
Uh,
and we lived in these loft apartments. So like our bedroom, they went up to like 10 feet high, but then it was 20 feet ceilings, and we could talk to each other from our room to room, because we didn't have ceilings on our. And I would always send him shit just to hear him laugh out loud in the next room. Like that would be enough for me.
he does have a great laugh. That was one of the things that I like so much about the podcast is he does have a great laugh,
Yeah.
and you really have the way, like, you figured out the ways to get him to do that in ways, and so it's so I really enjoy it, and I hope that you would pass the message on to him that I just really enjoyed it. Whether you guys ever get to do it or not, or it comes back around, I hope that you all heal to a place where you're able to, because it was a magic podcast, and you guys had great chemistry, and I just passed that along to him because I quite enjoyed it. Your
Yeah,
chemistry
we always
was funny.
we always had fun argue. I know how to get my brother going. I
You
know how
cer
to
you certainly do.
I know how to get him upset. I know how to
Yeah,
get them all riled up and get
yeah,
them all like, burn the
yeah,
villagers. You know what I
yeah,
mean? Like I know how to get them all going. And
yeah.
then the one thing that we used to do all the time that it was something we missed was being able to call our dad.
Oh,
We would call our dad all the time on the show,
yeah, okay.
and
Yes. See y'all
so
do that.
but now then we called our mom and or our sister,
I love it.
but our dad was always the one that answered his phone no matter what.
That's great.
And so it's one thing that we missed when we came back. But I heard a lot of people, like somebody reached out to me and they said like, I hope you're okay. I saw your dad passed. He was always such a great addition to your show. And that made me feel good. Like, oh,
Yeah.
you're actually watching my show if you know that like my dad was always on there.
Yeah, yeah, and what a great memory you that you guys have too to look back on and to remember that with those things being out there on the web. You know, I think that's a pretty special memory to have. Yeah, because
Well,
I always love those calls that you all had. You know,
my mom still hasn't turned my dad's phone off.
really. Wow.
So I can still call him and hear his voice.
Yeah,
You
yeah.
know, I can still
Important.
hear his voicemail.
That's important. That's important.
So I think I don't know why she hasn't, because it's been like 5 months now. Um,
She
she
might do the
probably
same.
she probably doesn't feel like dealing with Verizon.
You think? She might wanna hear the voicemail too. I think that's a hard thing to let go of is someone's voice, you know? Especially if not having that. Like, I kept an entire when I moved after my grandparents died and we moved from Alabama to North Carolina, I had this old answering machine that I kept just because there was a call where my grandmother was talking to my mom, and it was just like I couldn't let it go, and ended up losing it in a storage unit, and you know, so those are the things that you miss is
Oh
just
yeah,
the voice.
I have two voicemails on my phone that are 8 years old from my first
Yeah.
fiance.
Wow.
And they've gone through 3 or 4 different phone changes, and I haven't lost those voicemails.
So I think that that is just so it would just be so nice to hear those voices again. You don't even think about I don't even remember the moment that I feel like I forgot what my grandfather's voice sounded like. You know, it was just like there was this moment in realizing, oh gosh, I haven't heard this voice in so long. And so on your strategy of like moving through this grief, it sounds like you and your wife have a pretty solid, open and vulnerable ability to safety to be vulnerable with each other. I mean, are you leaning on her a good bit and the your therapy and all of that stuff to help you just work through and work with all this energy?
I'm leaning on who I need to lean on, depending on, without having to push or hurt anybody.
Mm-hmm.
Like, yeah, I lean on her, but I don't want to completely lean on her and
Right.
give her too much to handle, because she's got her own shit to
Yeah,
deal
that's
with.
considerate.
And so I don't want to make her feel overwhelmed. My
Mm.
therapist, I just word vomit,
Yeah.
because you're getting paid for my word vomit.
Right, right, right. Yep, yep.
Same with my psychiatrist. I probably message him more than we actually talk.
Hmm.
He's helped me quit smoking.
Right.
Um,
Oh, wow. How long has it been?
because what's that?
How long has it been since you quit smoking?
Well, I haven't smoked one in 3 days.
Nice, nice. I'm doing that in
Um,
January. Made a commitment.
I take Shantix,
Uh-huh. Uh-huh.
and I chew gum.
Did you have any of the side effects from Chantix, the depression and all of that stuff?
I had them
Yeah.
all.
That kind of worries me a little bit with it, but you know,
Yeah,
I think
I went into a funk. I was in like a bad depression for like a week or two.
wow, okay.
Um, but I snapped out of it, and just I just kept saying I need to take this Shantix anyway. This is going to help me.
In
It
the
is
long
what it
run,
is.
yeah.
I've been depressed. I've been depressed before. Like, I can get through it.
Hmm.
I had the vivid dreams, really vivid dreams. But at the same time, I wanted to smoke less. I was down to 2 or 3 cigarettes a day.
Nice.
And then I chew gum while I work. I got my psychiatrist. I realized if I have a script, I can. I don't know if you know this, and people that don't know this take advantage of it. You can have your doctor write you a script for nicotine gum,
Mm.
and then you can go to CVS and just pay your copay.
Uh,
So,
oh,
like, the nicotine gum that I chew at from CVS brand, is $42. But with my copay, it's $1.
Wow. Wow.
So I get 100 pieces of gum for $1 as opposed to $42.
Wow. Wow. Well, that's a
Uh,
good nugget of information.
yeah, so that's helped me, because I would smoke like half a pack just during work.
Yep.
Because I work 4 10s,
Mm.
and really I worked 4 10 and a halves because
Hmm.
half an hour lunch break.
Yeah.
So I do 7 to 5:30 Monday, Tuesday, Thursday, Friday, and I would smoke a shitload of cigarettes in that time frame because I'd be stressed out. And
Yeah.
now I don't even get up from my desk; I just chew my gum, and I'll chew on the same piece for 2 hours sometimes, not even
Wow.
realize. But I don't get any cravings. I haven't had a craving for a cigarette all week. The
That's
only
awesome.
reason I would say I quit like 2 weeks ago.
Uh-huh.
Um, Whereas I hadn't smoked outside of my building because you can't smoke inside. Like I don't smoke
Mhm.
inside.
Yeah.
But I haven't smoked outside of my building in like 2 weeks. The only time I've smoked was in the car driving. That
Gotcha.
that was the hardest part for me to kick
Yeah.
was
Yeah.
smoking and driving.
Yeah, I think that's gonna be I think I've kinda recognized that for myself too. Well, for me, I think it's really important. I kinda do it the way I do my recovery process is to build kind of a strategy, and I do that by knowing myself. I could go ahead and identify the places in my life that I know are going to be likely the hardest, and also expect that I'm going to be surprised sometimes too. And I find a big part of the whole smoking or any releasing or healing of any type of addiction is that who am I going to be without this? Like, what version of myself? So I think for me, it's very important for me to have that positive, non smoking version of myself that I can really visualize to keep that in my mind because it's very scary making changes like that, especially when you're coming from an addiction standpoint because there's you don't have that contrast of who you're going to be. So,
Well, the
well, I'm
gum is
super
good
excited
for
for
you. Nicotine by itself is healthy. It's
you.
not a bad thing to have.
Hmm.
Nicotine and gum, it helps you focus. It helps you wake up. I can't even remember all the benefits, but there are benefits to nicotine by itself.
Hmm. Hmm.
When you mix nicotine with tobacco and tar, that's what lung cancer comes from.
Yeah.
You don't get cancer from nicotine.
Hmm.
Nicotine is what makes you want the cigarette more and more and more.
Right.
But nicotine isn't what's causing the cancer in your mouth or causing the cancer on your lungs. That's the smoke, that's the dark tar, that's all of the things that are negatively affecting your health. But I watched this scientist dude, Andrew Huberman is his name.
I've
He's
heard.
a Stanford
Mhm.
doctor that has his own podcast called the Huberman Effect,
Yeah.
and he did an entire episode based on nicotine and how it can be
Hmm.
healthy for you.
That's interesting. I'll have to check that out
I'll
because
send
I'm
it to
really
you.
good. I appreciate that because I'm really trying to build my recovery battle plan, my quit smoking battle plan. I really want this to be successful, and I have all of my whys in place, all of the things that I know are this is going to benefit. And so I think it's just going to be about getting through it and getting over that hump. And I don't feel bad if I end up having to take a Chantix, or they gave me the Wellbutrin. There was something about the Chantix for some reason I couldn't take. I've had seizures. I had an adult onset epilepsy seizure disorder, so I had to take the Wellbutrin. Well, I tried it once before and I took it. I think it was like the third day, and I went to work and I had this really weird feeling in my head. And I thought, oh shit, this Wellbutrin feels terrible. Well, I ended up having COVID and it wasn't the Wellbutrin, but I just never started it again. And so that's what I'm going to take. And so I'll have to be on the lookout for that agitation because I'm sure I'll be prone to get it too since I was always a depressive and anxious human. Like I'm prone to those things, so it's good to know that.
Yeah, I tried the
Oh,
Wellbutrin. They had me on Wellbutrin. It was like a double whammy of you're on Wellbutrin because you're bipolar and because you're trying to quit smoking. You know what I mean?
yeah, yeah,
it was like you need it for two different
yeah.
reasons.
We'll cover both of these things.
But it turned out that Wellbutrin didn't work with my cigarettes, and it didn't work with my bipolarness. So
Bipolarness.
whatever you want to call it, me
Yeah,
being
I love that.
bipolar. But it's something. It sucks when you're bipolar because there's so many spectrum. There's a spectrum of being bipolar,
Mhm, mhm.
and there's so many different drugs out there for people who are bipolar, and you don't know which ones. There's no like way to be like, okay, this is going to work for this person because of X, Y, and Z. This is going to work for this person because of X. It's not like that. It's
Yeah,
trial and error. You're a freaking guinea pig.
right, right. And sometimes that trial and error can be really hard. Sometimes it can almost feel like it's worse,
It
before it gets
is,
better. Yeah,
and it's
it's
because
hard.
you have to start on it, and then all the doctors will say, all right, we'll give it 6 weeks
Yeah,
and see how you feel in 6 weeks. And then week 6 comes around and it will not have helped you. And then they're like, okay, now you need to wean off of it for 6 weeks. All right,
yeah,
well, here's a new drug. Let us know how you feel in 6 weeks. 6 weeks rolls around. Now we need to wean you off of that 6 weeks.
yeah, yeah,
So it's a roller coaster of not only of emotions, but like trial and error to figure out what works for you.
yeah. What your combo is, or what the thing is. Yeah, I am grateful. I think it was about 4 years ago that I took my last antidepressant, and that was just because they weren't helping any at all. Like, I just never found all the ones that we tried, nothing ever really worked. And so I was able to use a lot of wellness, but I don't think that I could have used just wellness and spiritual practices in the beginning. I needed the contrast to know that these things don't work. Therefore, this is probably my only hope for feeling any better. And so I'm grateful to say that, that has been what has worked for me. But each person has to find what it is that works for them. And us coming from an instant gratification place, it is hard to say, oh, wait a minute, you mean I gotta still feel like shit for to know if I'm gonna still feel like shit in 6 weeks? Like, it's hard to do that. And so,
It's a
people
hard
take
pill to
advantage.
swallow.
It certainly is. It certainly is. Well, JD, this has been fun, man. I really appreciate you coming and sharing so openly and vulnerably and honestly about all this. I think there's so many people going through so many really big things right now in their life. And so I appreciate you coming and sharing with us so openly. And we're going to send people to hook up with JD. If you don't already know JD, or are not already a subscriber to MJ's Progress Not Perfection podcast, which is available on all major platforms, you can also connect and find JD's links at facebook.com/JD Dilks. And I don't know why I put the .com on there. I was probably, you and I were talking and I was just filling it all out.
Yeah.
But you guys know what that means. Y'all know how to find JD. I'm sure that most of the people that will see this probably know you already. Well, give my love to your family, and please tell your wife for me that she's a badass and I appreciate her, y'all having and sharing about that type of relationship. There's some that's healthy aspects when you can call each other out, and it's so helpful, even though maybe it doesn't always feel like it at the time. So thanks again for being here, man. It's always an honor to sit in a presence with you and get to share some time. And is there anything in closing that you want to leave this audience and anybody that'll watch this in the replay? Is there anything that you want to leave
No, just
with them?
check out my podcast. The other one that he was talking
Oh,
about
that's right.
is called the Dilks Musk, and that's with my brother. MJ's Progress Not Perfections on YouTube. It's on Apple. It's on Spotify. It's on all of them. You can find it anywhere. MJ's coming up on 150 episodes. LC is one of those
Congratulations.
150. Um,
Congratulations.
there's a ton of content on my and if you go to my Facebook page, I'll be like, okay, it's Sunday, and here are top five episodes with this, and I'll post 5 episodes to go check out.
That's
So
awesome.
go to my Facebook and see what I have. I'm thinking the next thing I'm doing is all my New Jersey people, and I'm
Oh,
gonna post
awesome.
all my New Jersey episodes.
That's
So,
awesome. Yeah, I
but
love your compilation episodes. They're really good. It was really
thank you,
good.
thank
And
you.
it was an honor to be on your show. So that's facebook.com JD Dilks. MJ's Progress Not Perfection podcast available on Apple and YouTube. Go and do all the things and hook up with JD. It's a great podcast, and you send my love to your brother too, man. He's an
I will.
amazing soul. He's an awesome soul, and so are you. And so I appreciate you, man, and look
Thanks,
forward
LC.
to
I
having you
appreciate it,
back.
bud.
Yeah, we'll have you back in season 6 in 2024. I'm looking forward to it.
Have a
All
good
right,
holiday,
man.
buddy.
Thank you. You too. Everybody out there, you too have the same holiday, and don't be afraid to be honest with yourself. And also remember that there are treasures hidden within your shadows, and don't be afraid to be able to see your life for all that you are and all of your possibilities are. But you got to be alive to do that. So please be careful out there. It's holiday season. Take care of yourself. And until next week, we'll see y'all next time. Thank y'all so much. Bye.